Hello, mayong adlaw. Good day, tourists. This is Rachel Posidas from Bohol Island State University, Calapi campus, and I will be your tour guide for today's virtual tour. One of the richest historical places in the Philippines. But before we begin our tour, please be reminded with all safety precautions and guidelines so that this trip would be highly safe and enjoyable. If you hear a whistle once like this, it means that it is your time to roam around the vicinity. But if you hear a whistle blowing twice like this, our time is off and let's head off back to the bus because we are going to our next destination. These historical sites in the Philippines never fail to amaze its visitors. Let us stroll through our history. Here are my top 20 most historical sites in the Philippines. Be sure to have your pen and paper to list down some of the important places and to include it in your bucket list. So welcome to our first destination, which is the Aguinaldo Shrine, located in Kawit, Cavite, a few kilometers away from the hometown of the Amos City. Aguinaldo Shrine was the home of the first and youngest president of the Republic of the Philippines, Emilio Aguinaldo. It is a historical place in the Philippines because, as we all know, it is where the first Philippine flag was waved that symbolizes the country's independence in 1898. Now it's a famous tourist spot and houses some of Aguinaldo's treasures. Some houses are known as the House of Aguinaldo and his family memorabilia. What makes this place interesting is that it is where you'll realize how intelligent Aguinaldo was through the architecture of his house, revealing some secret hideouts and passages that were relevant during the time of war. Next up, we have the Bagong Bayan. Bagong Bayan, also known as Luneta Park, is one of the most historical attractions and national historical shrine in the Philippines. This is because the Philippines has a national hero called Jose Rizal, and this is where he was executed on December 30, 1896, after he fought for the country's freedom from the Spaniards through his articles, essays, and novels. This monument is a great place for strolls and a picnic underground is a must. Tourists, it's time for our next destination. Fort Santiago, one of the most notable Philippine landmarks and most historical sites in Intramuros, Manila. It was the place where Dr. Jose Rizal was held in prison before his execution. Hundreds of lives were lost in this Philippine landmark during the Spanish colonial period and World War II. Today, Fort Santiago is one of the major tourist spots for historical places in Manila and in the Philippines. View the scenic ruins caused by World War II and visit the dungeons of Fort Santiago. Tourists, it's time for our next destination. The walled city of Intramuros. A walk in and around Intramuros is like a stroll where you will see amazing cultural attractions in the Philippines. That's why when talking about the top 10 historical places in the Philippines and historical places in Manila, Intramuros never misses the list. It is the oldest and historic core of Manila and built with defensive walls against foreign invasions, hence being called the World City, where you can see the preserved Spanish colonial structures from government offices to residential areas to souvenir shops. It is also surrounded by other historic places like Fort Santiago, and you can tour via bamboo bicycles, palasa or horse carriages, or by foot. Take note that some tourist attractions in the area have entrance fees. Tourists, it's time for our next destination. The Pitan, Zamboanga del Norte. The Rizal Shrine in Zamboanga del Norte is one of the most historical places in Mindanao. This is where Dr. Jose Rizal spent 4 years of exile when he was accused of planning the revolution against Spanish rule. Rizal Shrine in Zamboanga del Norte is one of the important landmarks in the Philippines. Tourists, it's time for our next destination. EDSA Shrine, located at the crossroads of EDSA Avenue and Ortigas Avenue in Quezon City. EDSA Shrine, formerly known as the Shrine of Mary, Queen of Peace, Our Lady of EDSA, is no doubt one of the most historical places in Luzon. This is where the historic and world-renowned People Power Revolution took place. The People Power Revolution is one of the world's most historic events because of this uprising was peaceful, bloodless, and successful. You will see a few notable monuments in the Philippines in and near the EDSA Shrine. The 35 feet tall image of Blessed Virgin Mary, and it is near shopping malls. Tourists, it's time for our next destination. Leyte Landing Memorial Park. The Leyte Landing Memorial Park, also known as the MacArthur Leyte Landing Memorial National Park, is one of the most famous monuments in the Philippines. It is a protected area of the Philippines that commemorates the historic arrival of General Douglas MacArthur in Leyte Gulf to free the Philippines from Japanese occupation. He also became famous for his line and later on fulfilled his promise to the Philippines. The statues of General Douglas MacArthur and his troops in the exact location where they landed is the most famous site of Leyte Landing Memorial Park. Tourists, it's time for our next destination. Another historical place in the Philippines is the Biak na Bato in San Miguel, Bulacan. This is the famous landmark where Emilio Aguinaldo and other revolutionaries established the Biak na Bato Republic to be free from the Spaniards. What can you see in the Biak na Bato? You can visit the hanging bridge over a clear river, several caves including the exact place where the revolutionaries secretly established a republic. Tourists, it's time for our next destination. Baraswain Church in Malolos, Bulacan. Baraswain Church is not just an ordinary place for worship but also one of the most historical attractions in the Philippines because three significant events happened there. First is convening of the First Philippine Congress on September 15, 1898. The ratification of the Malolos Constitution on January 21, 1899, and the inauguration of the First Philippine Republic on January 23, 1899. This is perfect if you are looking for historical places in the Philippines near Manila. You can visit the Museo ng Republika ng 1899 where you can enjoy several galleries that features the historic events in town and the country. Tourists, it's time for our next destination. Mactan Shrine in Cebu has played a huge role in the Philippine history. This is the site of the Battle of Mactan, where Datu Lapu-Lapu defeated the Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan in 1521. The Mactan Shrine is one of the famous Philippine landmarks and was built in honor of Lapu-Lapu. You can visit the 65-feet bronze monument of Datu Lapu-Lapu. Tourists, it's time for our next destination. Corregidor Island. Corregidor is a small rocky island located at the entrance of Manila Bay. It was once the headquarters of Allied Filipino and American forces who fought against the Japanese during the World War II and witnessed the braveries of these soldiers. While the Japanese had occupied lots of places in the Philippines, they avoided Corregidor because of the fear of the huge canyons surrounding the place. This is definitely one of the must-visit cultural attractions in the Philippines. You can visit the beautiful and historic ruins like Middleside Barracks and the Battery Way. You can also see here Corregidor's longest gun battery heard. Tourists, it's time for our next destination. Calle Crisologo. The list of famous historical landmarks in the Philippines isn't complete without vegan in it. And among the things that vegan is well known for is the Calle Crisologo, where you can see cobblestone streets, intricate architecture, and horse carriages, where you can see a lot of them, commonly known as kalesa. It's one of the few Hispanic towns surviving in the Philippines.
Cheers! It's time for our next destination.
Blood Compact Shrine. The Sandugo or Blood Compact Shrine Monument in Tagbilaran is a landmark at the site of the first international treaty of friendship between Spaniards and Filipinos. This Bohol tourist spot depicts the Katuna and Legazpi at the famed Sandugo moment. You can visit the iconic statue of men performing the traditional Sandugo with an ocean view.
Cheers! It's time for our next destination.
The Shrine of Valor. The Shrine of Valor in Bataan is a memorial to all the soldiers who died bravely in the battle against the Spanish forces and those who died during the Bataan Death March in World War II. Don't miss the place as it is one of the most beautiful Bataan historical places. The shrine consists of a large memorial cross and a colonnade, accessible to and from the popular Casas Filipinas de Acosar.
Cheers! It's time for our next destination.
Fort San Pedro. Fort San Pedro is the oldest fort in the country, one of the most visited Cebu City tourist spots, similar to Manila's Fort Santiago. Fort San Pedro served as military defense structure during the 17th century. Spanish conqueror Miguel Lopez de Legazpi, who founded the earliest San Pedro Fort, was the first to build a fort in the country. The fort was built in the 17th century and was the first to build a fort in the country. The city's first settlement in Cebu had the initiative to put up this fortress. At Fort San Pedro, you'll discover the history of Cebu, Spanish government, and well-preserved Spanish artifacts.
Cheers! It's time for our next destination.
Plaza Cuartel in Puerto Princesa. Aside from being one of the world's best islands, Palawan is also home to some famous landmarks in the Philippines, like the Plaza Cuartel in Puerto Princesa, then served as a World War II garrison for the Filipino and American soldiers, and now the landmark serves as a memorial for prisoners of war who were burned alive in Anacapulco, an underground tunnel. You can visit spots where soldiers suffered and were killed. There's a huge park perfect for a good walk, and the entrance fee is free.
Cheers! It's time for our next destination.
Binondo, Manila. If you want to go on a food trip while seeing historical places in Manila, go to Binondo. Not only Binondo offers a great food adventure, but it also home to the oldest Chinatown in the world. It is a popular tourist destination in the world. Binondo is also home to the historic Binondo Church, built in the late 16th. It was destroyed during the World War II, in which only the facade, including the belfry and the Ongpin Street side remained standing and was reconstructed after the war. There are lots of food spots as mentioned, authentic Filipino and Chinese food, Instagrammable spots of course of Binondo Church and Chinatown.
Cheers! It's time for our next destination.
The University of Santo Tomas. The list of old historical buildings in the Philippines is never complete without this school. The University of Santo Tomas in Manila. Founded on April 28, 1611, USD is one of the oldest existing universities and holds the oldest extant university charter in the Philippines and in Asia. USD had produced 4 presidents of the Philippines, 3 vice presidents, and 6 chief justices Supreme Court, and of course the GOAT Philippine national hero Dr. Jose Rizal, where he studied medicine. You can visit the Arc of the Century, the USD Church, and the USD main building, which houses the USD Museum, and some food stalls, and the entrance fee is free.
Cheers! It's time for our next destination.
Tirad Pass in Ilocos Sur. Tirad Pass is not just a great spot for adventure seekers, but it is also one of the most historical places in the Philippines, as it was the site of the 1899 Battle of Tirad Pass during the Philippine-American War. You can see amazing mountain views and lush hills.
Tourists, it's time for our next destination.
Limasawa, Southern Leyte. The town of Limasawa in Southern Leyte is one of the historical sites in the Philippines you shouldn't miss. The first documented Catholic Mass in the Philippines was held here on March 31, 1521. You can visit Magellan's Cross, Dakdak Beach, and Limasawa Lagoon. They say past is past, but we can't and shouldn't forget the past that shape our present.